Ryan Michael Ballo here from Live Cortex to do a quick video on Aniracetam, some basics about Aniracetam and what I think of Aniracetam. Aniracetam is a smart drug that's been around for quite some time, part of the racetam clique of smart drugs. Its primary mechanism of action is working through enhancing glutamate functionality by positively modulating glutamate receptors as well as acetylcholine receptors, if I remember correctly. And what that ends up equaling is a stimulatory response that for most people ends up in either a better focus capacity, faster speed of information processing, a working memory improvement, and or a lot of people report, and me included in some cases, a creativity benefit from taking Aniracetam. I started trying to think like when the first time I took Aniracetam was and what the dosage was. It had to have been like 3 or 4 years ago. But in the beginning, my dose was the recommended dose, which is 750 to 1,000 milligrams with a choline source. In the beginning, for me, I was sort of interested in trying the more bioavailable blood-brain barrier crossing choline sources like CDP choline and alpha GPC, because I think I just sort of wanted to get the maximized effect from it. But later on down the line, as I continued taking Aniracetam and experimenting with other cholinergics and other racetams, I came to the understanding that the blood-brain barrier crossing choline sources in higher doses which the racetams might require based on the fact that Aniracetam specifically may end up releasing and using more acetylcholine in various regions of the brain, that the BBB crossing compounds would give me sometimes unwanted side effects, tinnitus, like ringing in the ears, that was acute with the choline sources in higher doses, 300 to 500 milligrams. I never got choline headaches or racetam headaches. I really never got those, but I would get brain fog and I would have memory issues and I would become tired, and again, I have lethargy and all these sort of pretty negative symptoms when you're trying to take a stimulatory smart drug that's going to help your brain work better. So these days, when I take Aniracetam, it's 750 to 1,000 milligrams. I do not need large doses of any of the racetams. I take it with 250 to 500 milligrams of choline bitartrate. And where that differs for me is in, I guess, determining my choline intake, trying to look at my choline intake in the last few days. I'll go on sort of stints where, not for specific reasons, but sort of arbitrarily, I won't eat any eggs, or I won't eat any meat, or I won't eat things that might have choline in them that could form the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, so I might be relatively low. So if I identify that the last few days have been like that, I'm certainly going to take 500 milligrams of choline bitartrate as opposed to taking 250 milligrams of choline bitartrate. By the way, I just want to quick clear something up. This is something I'm going to be talking about a lot because the nootropics community seems to be slightly confused about this. At least a lot of people that take nootropics and fuss with smart drugs seem to be a little confused about this. Choline bitartrate is still very effective. Choline citrate probably as well for providing and yielding the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in the brain to keep up with the usage of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine from the racetam. Just because it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier immediately after absorption does not mean that the body forgets how to yield acetylcholine from choline, the B vitamin, okay? Whether it's bitartrate or citrate or it's alpha-glycerol-phosphorylcholine, the body's still going to yield acetylcholine from those compounds. It's just that with bitartrate and the less bioavailable, less blood-brain barrier crossing choline sources, that they're not going to hit the brain and cross the blood-brain barrier to give you an immediate stimulatory effect where you literally feel your state change significantly as a result of taking them, like alpha-GPC would do and like CDP choline would do. Choline bitartrate's not going to do that. But if you've got other nootropics that you're taking that are affecting the cholinergic system and require a constant usage of acetylcholine, or require a repletion or a good reservoir of acetylcholine, then taking choline bitartrate or taking choline citrate is going to provide the brain and body with the capacity to have that acetylcholine. I actually believe that when you take a racetam or you take another stack that essentially releases more acetylcholine in various regions of the brain, striatum and prefrontal cortex and other places, that if you've got a source like a choline bitartrate or choline citrate, that the body may in fact metabolize that faster and recognize that there's an increased usage of the neurotransmitter in the brain, and thus provide that extra reservoir faster so that you have it available. I noticed that when taking the racetams with choline bitartrate versus taking the racetams without choline bitartrate. Whereas like I don't really get racetam headaches, but I get a little overstimulated and I just kind of feel generally unwell most of the time if I take a racetam without a choline source. It used to not be the case for me, but now it is. As opposed to taking a choline source with the racetam bitartrate or citrate, those problems don't exist. So that obviously indicates that choline from the choline bitartrate is being metabolized, it's passing through my liver, it's ending up in my bloodstream, and then through whatever enzymatic activity, I forget which enzyme or what the chemical process is to convert choline, what converts choline to acetylcholine, but that happens, and we don't run into the side effects or the effects that I would get from racetams without a choline source. And so that's an important thing to note. You don't necessarily have to take alpha GPC or any of these other things. In fact, I look at CDP choline and alpha GPC specifically as nootropics that you can take both to provide acetylcholine, because they're going to end up doing that, but also really in large part to create a stimulatory immediate response to the brain, essentially a nootropic in and of itself. That doesn't just subtly allow you to hold more information in your memory, but actually gives you a boost in mental energy and thus verbal fluency and a bunch of other stuff. And so that's why in the Cortex Generation 1 stack and the Gen 2 stack, we've got a bioavailable choline source in there. We've got CDP choline, but it's not in very high concentrations. Because once you get into the higher concentrations, and by the way, that means 200 plus milligrams, 200 to 700 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, very high concentrations there, you start running into brain fog, and a host of other problems that you don't want to run into. We don't want to run into putting a stack out like that. And so that's a critically important thing to consider. I mean, in making a nootropic stack, we decided not to put a whole bunch of CDP in there. There's enough to get you a great effect, but not a whole lot, because we don't want to create that overstimulation effect, and we certainly don't want to put people into brain fog. So aniracetam has some pretty interesting effects on working memory for me. I always like to say use it as a kind of a point of reference. But in my company here, now, it's a company called iMobile Rescue. It's an iOS device services company I started in 2011. That's gone national since. Interesting company. We fix a lot of iPads and do a lot of repair work. I'm always having to deal with trying to remember serial numbers, right? Trying to contend with having multiple serial numbers in my head and pairing those serial numbers with devices and pairing those devices with customers. And in my baseline, my normal baseline, and even optimized with other nootropics that don't necessarily affect working memory significantly, I can remember, serial numbers, the first few numbers, and pair them with the device and pair them with the customer, and I have that in my head. Because a lot of schools send us devices, and we have to keep track of serial numbers, connect them to the problems, and those serial numbers and devices need to be connected to the companies we're dealing with for our sort of inventory tracking purposes. But when I take aniracetam, I can remember more of the serial numbers, and it's really, really awesome. It's like I can actually feel it in my brain when I'm looking at a serial number. Like I can feel it's hard because it's hard to explain sensations of like how your brain feels when you're experiencing some sort of performance enhancement. But for me, it actually feels like the prefrontal cortex, or the front of my brain, where working memory takes place, opens up a little bit. Like I feel like wider. I feel like it's wider, and looking at the numbers, I can look at more of the numbers. Also, when taking aniracetam, if I'm reading a book, then it's far easier for me compared to baseline to be on if you're looking at the book here, and you're looking at the left side of the book, and then the left page of the book, and then the right page of the book. You got two pages in front of you, the left and right page. If I'm at the bottom of the right page looking at the book, then I can remember everything that I just read on the top of the left page, and I'm corresponding it all together. That creates a synthesis learning and a synthesis comprehension experience for reading the book, which is really pleasurable, because you're really you understand what the hell you're reading, and in cases where the working memory is not functioning optimally, that's really hard to do. So I would say that aniracetam is great for those things, working memory for maybe business operations. If you work in corporate and you've got some memory capacity stuff that you got to hold a lot of information in your working memory and short-term memory functionality, then aniracetam might be really useful for that. If you are reading and need to comprehend stuff, aniracetam is super useful for that. If you're a student, this is a great application. If you're a student and you need to comprehend stuff, at the level that solidifies information into your long-term memory in a way that allows you to go past tests, etc., then Aniracetam can be extremely useful for helping you to solidify those memories via the capacity to hold the information into your short-term memory long enough. It's like if you're holding information in the working memory long enough and you're better at it, it makes sense to think that you can then convert it through the hippocampus to longer-term memory for later retrieval later on. What else? I think that Aniracetam for me provides a very stimulatory response. Each time that I take Aniracetam, I feel very stimulated. It's different than a cup of coffee or some tea or something. It's more like it makes my brain lighter. It makes my brain very, very light. It's like sort of like normally at my baseline, or if I didn't get enough sleep, or if something's wrong, my brain might kind of feel a little heavy and sluggish. But Aniracetam, the stimulatory effect of Aniracetam for me kind of puts it in a place where it's very light. I'm light on my feet. Things are much quicker. My speed of processing is a lot quicker. And I'm stimulated as a result of that to do cerebral work. As an example, I would much rather sit down and write a blog post, write something pretty long on Aniracetam than my baseline. My baseline is pretty optimal and pretty awesome, and so I can blog and do stuff. And I've been blogging for like 5-6 years now, so I'm pretty good at it. But Aniracetam just kind of makes that experience a lot better. If there are tasks that I haven't tackled in my say the administrivia of my businesses, then taking Aniracetam allows me to sort of puts me in a place where I want to go and tackle all of those tasks. It's interesting because I sort of think of Aniracetam for me alongside these other things as a multitasking smart drug, right? It almost makes me want to multitask. It makes me want to, and sometimes you got to engage in that mode. You got emails to answer, then you've got something else on your focus list to hit up, then you've got some administrivia that you've got to engage in like QuickBooks or something if you're a business owner, or name your thing if you're applicable to kind of whatever your occupational endeavor is. It helps me to want to focus on multiple things. So summarizing what Aniracetam does for me, Aniracetam improves my working memory. Right, it's just night and day. It is a great choice for working memory intensive tasks. If I'm going to go read something and I really want to remember what I'm reading and have a good grasp on all the material for a good comprehension experience that's pleasurable, then I'll take some Aniracetam. Aniracetam stimulates me, makes my brain very light on its feet, and I really just want to work on multiple tasks at once. If I have a to-do list of a bunch of sort of menial tasks or tasks that don't require a whole lot of time, but I just need to plug away at them, I really want to do them when I take Aniracetam. I really just want to engage in them when I take Aniracetam. Aniracetam helps me with my creativity. I don't know if I really mentioned that, but Aniracetam kind of helps me to put disparate ideas together, which is very, very cool. A thing to do, a response to get from a nootropic, where typical nootropics and typical smart drugs may not really affect that area significantly or noticeably. They sort of make you able to focus and able to engage in stuff, whereas Aniracetam for me definitely puts me in a place where I can put ideas that I wouldn't otherwise put together, and that's a really pleasurable feeling that to get from a smart drug. Aniracetam, most racetams you should take with a choline source because they use extra choline and release extra acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, in various regions of the brain. Aniracetam also modulates acetylcholine receptors, so it's probably increasing the signal strength, the strength of the acetylcholine neurotransmitter passing from neuron to neuron, and so you require more acetylcholine potentially as a result of that. So taking with a choline source is a good idea, but the blood-brain barrier crossing choline sources are the ones that typically tend to give people the most problems when taken in the dosage that Aniracetam might require based on the usage of acetylcholine from the Aniracetam. So I stick with choline citrate or choline bitartrate. Choline bitartrate and citrate are not useless or rendered ineffective by any means. The body will convert that to usable acetylcholine, and I have a theory that it happens faster when the usage or the demand for acetylcholine is higher in the case of taking Aniracetam. Not to say that you can't take alpha GPC or CDP choline with Aniracetam and be okay, because you might, and you're going to have to experiment. But if you're one of those people that gets a headache from, and really the headache is not a Aniracetam headache, it's a choline headache, or if you get some brain fog, or if you get some working memory issues or something, or you feel tired, you have lethargy from taking CDP or alpha GPC choline, then you probably want to stick with bitartrate or citrate. I guess that's pretty much it. I think overall, it's a pretty amazing compound. It's been shown to be neuroprotective If you read the examine.com literature and go through some of the studies, you can see that inducing a memory malfunctions via scopolamine, which is a substance that fusses with the cholinergic system, is completely reversed by taking aniracetam and or prevented, which is very, very cool. And I remember reading that taking aniracetam does not create an increase in enzymes in your liver, which would imply that it's not toxic to the liver or toxic to the body in any way, which is very cool, right? So that kind of leads us into, or lends a little perspective on the question of, are smart drugs safe to take long term, and specifically, is aniracetam safe to take long term? The answer to that question, at least from my perspective right now, which caveat, this might change, and I've only been experimenting with nootropics for 6 years. My answer right now is it's safe to take long term. We did a post about that and a podcast about that on Live Cortex. You can search on the search bar on the blog page or any blog post page, this one, on livecortex.com, to find those articles, or Google them and you'll find it. And my dosage at this point, to reiterate, is 750 milligrams of aniracetam, 250 milligrams choline bitartrate, and I'm in. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have not tried the Cortex Nootropics stack, we created our own stack. It's got uridine monophosphate, CDP choline, artichoke extract, and Bacopa monnieri. It provides a very synthesized, integrated nootropic experience. People that report their effects have reported everything from it being a powerful pre-workout supplement to making them feel integrated and having their brain kind of all in one place as they do their teachings for the day. That came from a professor at Virginia Tech who's been there for 50 years, to people just reporting that their brain performance in general and mental energy is a night and day difference compared to their baseline when taking the Cortex stack. We've got mothers in Canada who are able to engage in the myriad of motherly tasks that need to take place throughout the day and in the PM hours while taking Cortex, compared to baseline where they'd have to take caffeine pills to make that happen. We've got Wall Street personnel crunching numbers all day that are reporting better working memory, better energy, better brain energy, better verbal fluency, better overall kind of work functionality. We've got media people that work in the media that are constantly on the phone, constantly dealing with people, reporting better verbal fluency. There's a staff sergeant in the United States Army that uses the product that reports a better capacity to, he's a recruiter in Colorado, and one of the things that their main job is to get people into the Army. I mean, they actually are looking to essentially close deals to get people in the Army. And his kind of benchmark or reference for productivity is, in fact, it has been meetings, just meetings with Joes or potential Joes, people that are going to go into the Army, and that's kind of the benchmark for success. But taking Cortex, the guy was able to land significantly more appointments by being able to talk to people better, by having the verbal fluency to better explain to people and to better convey the benefits of joining the Army in terms of education, psychological enhancement, and all the rest of it, to get more people in, and has actually converted people, regular civilians, into United States Army members that are about to go to OSUT training or basic training, then advanced individual training thereafter, which is pretty awesome benchmark. It's a lot of great productivity. So snag yourself a bottle of the Cortex Nootropic at livecortex.com. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. We need more subs, more views. Share it if you loved it, and thanks for watching.